DJ's got a really fun question here. DJ Van Court asks, what would be more important and beneficial for the Mariners' future? Jarred Kelenic turning into a bona fide superstar, or the trio of Logan Gilbert, Emerson Hancock, and George Kirby all hit their projected median value? This is a really good question. Let's do it this way. I would put a superstar's prime years, and when I mean prime years, I don't mean a certain age, but his best years, worth 6 to 9 wins per year. But the Mariners don't control any of these players for their prime years necessarily. We don't know if Kelenic's going to hit his prime at 23 or at 28, right? So if we kind of assume that somewhere in those 6 years, they hit a reasonable prime, I think that superstar is worth 6 to 9 years. But we'll give Kelenic about 6 wins or so a year once he gets settled, because that's kind of the bottom rung of superstar. Like every year, Mookie Betts is at least a 6-win player. But he didn't get there in year 1 or 2. So we have to account for that. So if we're saying that Kelenic's going to be worth about an average of about 6 wins a year for his first 6 years in the big leagues, again, on average, because he might only be worth 1 in year 1 and then be worth 7 or 8 for 3 or 4 years, then he's likely worth 30 to 35 wins above replacement during his control years. 30 to 35 during his control years, depending on how quickly, again, he gets to that level once he reaches the big leagues. Now, those 3 pitchers, Gilbert, Hancock, Kirby, all have similar medians. And median, that was DJ's term. I took that as their most likely outcome. I'd say all 3 have median projections as number 3 starters. It's the most likely outcome for all 3 of those guys. Now, I think Gilbert, because he's so far along, has a better chance to reach his ceiling, at least as we speak right now, than Emerson Hancock or George Kirby. But his median is still a number 3. And by scouting definition, a number 3 starter is above league average starting pitcher that would fit as the 3rd best starter in a top 10 or so rotation, top 10 to 12 rotation, like a playoff team's rotation. The majority of playoff teams, the good ones that have good rotation. You're thinking about a top 10 or 12 rotation. So they likely rank between like 21 and 40 in wins above replacement among starting pitchers, which would put them in the 3 to 4 WAR range. We'll call it 3.5. That would make the trio worth 11.5 wins above replacement per year. Now, if we adjust for the fact that all 3 aren't going to hit this level right away, and that the value of a number 3 starter varies a little bit, it's probably reasonable to say that these 3 are probably worth about 8 wins above replacement per year for their control years. We made an adjustment with Kelenic. We got to do it here too. Meaning that they're probably worth, if they all hit their projected medians, around 45 to 50 wins above replacement compared to Kelenic's 30 to 35. So you might be thinking, well, then I guess we're taking the 3 starters instead of Kelenic, right? Well, using wins above replacement obviously doesn't tell the whole story. There's an inherent yet indirect value a superstar player brings that number 3 starters do not. There's no way to quantify it, but it's absolutely real. They change entire lineups. They alter how opponents attack. They force opposing managers to change the way they strategically, pull pitchers from games, or the guy that's warming up, or do they want to walk him and pitch to the guy behind him? And with more players on base, the players behind the superstar are much better off. Hitters generally hit better with runners on base. There's more pressure on the pitcher. And it's not just first base, but think about a runner on third base or a runner on second base with 0 or 1 outs. There's a lot of pressure on the pitcher there, and that's advantage hitter. So those that bat directly in front of or behind, the 1 or 2 hitters in front of the Mike Trouts of the world, or the Mookie Betts, or superstar Jarred Kelenic, and those that hit 1, 2, 3 batters behind have an advantage that they wouldn't have if superstar Kelenic was not there. That being said, pitching, even number 3 starter level pitching, is difficult to find, and it's especially expensive to trade for and exceptionally pricey to pay for in free agency. I do think, however, that winning without stars is darn near impossible. And having a legitimate 6 to 9 win player makes it easier around which to build the rest of your roster. So despite it being expensive and difficult to find number 3 starters, and those 3 starters likely having a 10 to 20 win advantage over a 6-year period, it's better to have the superstar than 3 number 3s. If you think about it this way, having 3 number 3 starters in and of itself doesn't mean a whole lot. It means you have some depth in your rotation, I guess, right? Do you have a number 1? Do you have a number 2? Do you have a viable number 5? It doesn't really do a whole lot for you, right? Not winning a division title that way, unless it's a historically bad division that year, still need better arms than that to do damage, especially in the postseason. You take Kelenic as a superstar here, and you take your chances with everything else. You take your chances that those pitchers can turn out to be better than that. You take your chances that you can find pitching in future drafts. You take your chances that, somebody like Jose Corniel or Kristen Cardozo turns into a pitcher you need in that rotation to at least take the place of what you'd be giving up in DJ's scenario. It's a great question, DJ. I appreciate it. And you know what? I'll even take it one further. Somebody asked me, I think I talked about it on the podcast. Somebody asked me, hey, you have a choice. You can take Julio Rodriguez maxed out or Jarred Kelenic maxed out. And for me, that's an easy choice. It's Jarred Kelenic. And they're like, well, wait, you gave Rodriguez 65 power and you only gave Kelenic 60 power. Well, first of all, Kelenic's hit tool is better. So if he maxes that out versus if Rodriguez maxes his out, Kelenic is more like a 280 to 300 hitter with 60 or a little bit better power. And Rodriguez is more like a 260 to 280 hitter with 65 or better power. There's a ton of value in the hit tool. The hit tool is the most important tool a hitter can have. Because you could have 70 power, but if you have a 35 hit tool, you're not getting to that 70 power. It's not going to show up enough. You'd start turning into the Rob Deers and the Dave Kingmans of the world. And that's not to say, 260 to 280 with 35 to 40 homer power is bad. That's great. But I'd much rather have 280 to 300 with 30 homers. Now, there's one other difference between Kelenic and Rodriguez. There's actually 2 other differences. Kelenic has better speed, and he's a better defensive player. Whether he lands in left or right field or he sticks in center for a while, a better defensive player than Julio Rodriguez. Julio's got a good arm, and he should be average out there. Shouldn't hurt you. He plays hard, has pretty good instincts. Not a problem. But Kelenic just has more upside. So if you're asking me, and that's why I've ranked him 1-2. I think some folks flip that. Did MLB flip theirs? Did Baseball America flip theirs and they went with Rodriguez? They're nuts. They're absolutely nuts. And barring injury, both players are going to be good. I'm pretty confident in that. We don't know they're going to be good, but I'm confident they will be. Again, great question, DJ. Appreciate it. 3 number 3 starters or Jarred Kelenic in superstar form. Yeah, you take Kelenic and you run with it.